So I thought today we'd do a little bit of Power Query. Now let's imagine that we've got this data here and we need to produce a list of who had paid, who hadn't paid, and I could do that easily with copy and paste, but that list would only have to be updated all the time. I'd have to put the new data in, I'd have to copy and paste the new data over. So with Power Query we can just update the source and then just pull the new information through. So let me show you how to do this. Now I'm actually not going to work in this file. I'm going to work in a new file which will give me the option to import this file, and that means if anything changes on this file it will automatically be updated. So let's jump in and have a go. So the first thing I've needed to do is close down the file I'm going to import. Don't forget to do that, otherwise it won't let you move any further. A fact I was reminded of when I was practicing my first video. So let's have a go. We're going to go to the data menu in Excel, and I'm going to go to Get Data, and from the Get Data menu I'm going to go let's go from File and then from Excel Workbook. So Get Data, from File, from Excel Workbook, and then we're going to choose the workbook. So here's my file here. I just need to double click on that and that will establish a connection between the two. So now it's taking me into the preview window. So what I've got here is this first one is a preview of the table, and I don't know if you've seen my other videos where I suggest when you make a table use the reference TBL, and this is where it starts to come in useful because I know full well that that's looking at a table. This bit here is looking at the sheet. So I could, in theory, because there's only one table and one sheet, I could use either, but I'm going to use pick on the table because that's what I need. That does the job. So one little tip, if you're using stuff for Power Query, first of all make sure it's a table, and secondly name the table. That will help you find it. As you'll see from my other videos, I'm quite big on naming tables. We need to get organised for this stuff to work. Okay, so now because I want to change the data, I can see it there. I'm going to go straight into transform here. One thing I should say is that the data I've chosen is good data. There's no merge cells, there's no problems with it, everything has its own column, it's been saved as a table so I know it works. If you're trying to do this and your data is poor, maybe there's missing lines, missing columns, merged cells, you're going to have problems. So if it's not letting you move past this point, you need to go back and you need to look at your original data. Okay, so let's choose transform because we want to change the data before we load it. So transform it is. So I'm now in the Power Query window. If you've never seen this before, a few things to remember. The first thing is it is case sensitive. So if we look at the paid column here, so I'm just going to use the filter. So and if I look at the paid column, you actually see there's two instances of paid, and that's because it's treating the one with a capital P differently to the one with a lower p. We can sort that out, no problem, but before we do that, a little bit more of a tour. The preview you see here is just a preview. You can't edit it, so there's no good trying to change any of this data. It's literally just a layout. And then what I also tell people is when they first go into Power Query, the first thing to do is name it. So I'm going to come over to the right hand side to the properties, and it's actually picked up, you have to be careful of this because it's picked up the table name and I don't want that, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to use the prefix QRY because it's a query, I'm asking a question, and I'm going to call it QRY paid. Okay, so again we're keeping these naming conventions so we know what different parts of our spreadsheet are. I think one of the reasons it's easy to get muddled up is because we don't name things at the beginning. Okay, so this is going to be everyone who's paid in my list. I don't need to do a lot with this. I need to just filter out all the people who are paid. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click, I'm going to sort the paid column out first. Do you remember I said to you there was an issue with the casing? So let's sort that out. So we're going to right click on the word paid on the heading. I'm going to choose transform, and so I just need to move out let's try that again. Right click on the word paid, choose transform, and I'm going to choose capitalize each word. So now when I go back to that filter, you'll see it's just picking up one instance of the word paid. That's exactly what I need. So I don't want the nulls, so I'm just going to, using the filter, I'm going to untick null, leave the paid in there, choose OK. Now I would also like a sort on the date column, so I'm going to go to the date column. I'm going to use the drop down and I'm going to choose sort descending, so it's going to do from the earliest date first. Yes. And I might also feel, do you know what, I want the dates at the beginning. Maybe I want to make this a little bit easier to read, so I'm just going to pick up the date column. I'm going to drag it to the beginning. Now this is one of those things that's really difficult to do in Excel, moving columns around in a table. So if you ever need to move them in, go into Power Query and it makes it much easier. Okay, so we've got our dates in place. Sometimes if your Power Query also is showing date and times, it hasn't done it, but normally it does. So I'm going to right click on the word date. If it does that, I would right click on date, I would choose change type, and I'd make sure it was set to date rather than date and time. So just a aside, because normally mine does when I don't know if it's an update here, it's only showing the date, but sometimes you might find it showing the date and time and you might not want that. Okay, so I've now got everyone who's been paid sorted in date order, and the columns are in the right order for me. So all I need to do is close and load. And let's see what happens. So there we go. So I've got my paid list. I now need an unpaid. Now I could go back and redo the query, re-import it, but the easiest thing to do is going to be to duplicate it. So we're going to go over to the query on the right click, and we're going to choose duplicate. Okay, so do you remember what the first thing we did was? Name the query. So let's go over to the top, delete the name, and I'm going to QRY unpaid. Okay, so I've now got my second query. So the main thing I want to do is I want to change the filter. Now if we look here on the list of applied steps, this was every single thing I did. So I brought it in from the source, moved around it. That was where I changed the type of paid to capitalise each word, and it's the filtered rows I want to look at here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, when I hover over filtered rows, you get this tiny cog next to it, and if I click on that cog, that's going to let me change the filter. So at the moment it says paid. Let's change it to null, means, and in Power Query terms that means empty, nothing in there. Choose OK. So brilliant. So it's brought all the unpaid ones up, and also it's remembered that sorting order as well. And if I just go back to the right hand side to the applied steps, click on the last one, and yep, it's remembered to put the date column first. So everything else has stayed the same. Okay, I'm going to close and load now. Okay, so I've got my two sheets, my paid and my unpaid. Okay, so here we go, we've got a list of unpaid ones. Let's go and see what happens if we update the source. So I've just opened up my source here, and I'm going to do this cell here for Harvey's down here. So this is the one, and that's now been paid, so I'm going to add in the word paid. And I'm also going to do it, let's do it for Acme as well. Okay, so let's just close that down, because remember it does need to be closed down before we get this to work. So if we look at our query file, you can see that Harvey's is here, Acme is also there. So let's go up to the data menu. I'm going to do a refresh all, which should hopefully refresh both sheets. And there we go, they've disappeared now. And if I come over to the query paid, and we'll just double check it, there's Acme, there's Harvey's. is. So what will happen, whatever is the most recent data will be pulled through. Unlike a copy and paste, which would only work as a one-off and you have to keep doing, if you put it through Power Query, it will just pull through the most up-to-date data and you haven't got to keep repeating the process. I hope this has been helpful, maybe just to even try out Power Query, because it's just such a useful feature. And if you're always filtering, sorting, moving things around in data, I'd give it a go. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want any, love to hear your comments of how you found this video.